What is the best advice that you have for a parent whose adult children are going through mental illness and spiritual attack?
Well, I think that the whole foundation of a really good protection and and God's love is to pray, and to the family that prays together stays together. They always say, which is true. Unfortunately, mental illness is something that occurs, and the only best thing you could do is show lots of love, share your faith with them, with your children, and just be there for them. Um, I'm sure that Dr. Glenn can be more eloquent in terms of answering this question. So, please, Dr. Glenn, don't prove me wrong there.
I'm sure I won't live up to your expectations, but I'll try anyway. And as many of our panel here, in fact, all of us, have spent time in a mental institution, mostly as staff, and the way you could tell the difference is the staff wore name tags, but the patients didn't. And my own experience is that it's easy for me to say, but difficult to do if I were in that situation, is that to some degree, you need to show love and concern, but if someone is suffering from severe mental illness, don't expect the warmth to be returned. The person is struggling. They're fighting their own battles. And so it's mainly your presence will be the best support that you can give. There's no words of wisdom that is going to suddenly make them better, but you can show love. You can express it verbally. But I think if somebody is really having severe mental issues, such things as touch, some things as presence, is the best support you can give. Also, mentally place yourself in their position. They're isolated from family. They're probably afraid. They're probably confused, and they need that human touch. I've worked in the worst of mental institutions, the old one flew over the cuckoo's nest variety, and some of the modern ones too. And no matter how sophisticated, well trained, and loving the staff may be, they still need family so they can feel a connection rather than people running around with white coats and being institutionalized. They need that human touch. I'm being a little bit redundant, but that's on purpose. So you can give who you are, but also remember, you're not at fault. It's not your responsibility. The best you can be is to be with them. Don't try to fix them. Don't try to cure them. Leave that to people who have that kind of skill and talent. I think that's all I can say.
Thank you. Thank you. The thing that comes to mind is that you've been chosen. That is, you as parents, you've been chosen. God has selected you. God doesn't make any mistakes, number one. And number two, God chose you to be the caregiver to these very special children. These children are so special, it reminds us that there is no such thing as not loving unconditionally when it comes to loving your children. Your children are special. God had gifted you these children, and God chose you to have these children. So there's nothing to feel guilty about. In fact, if anything else, you should feel blessed because these children are God's gift to you.
Right.
Okay, Dr. Joshua, give us your 2 cents.
Well, let me say this just by way of just introducing what I have in mind. A parent cannot carry an adult child's cross for them. but they can stand as an intercessor, a stabilizing presence, and a guardian of the spiritual atmosphere. And I want to say this, mental illness requires medical care. Absolutely. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, and we all will agree on that. But spiritual attack requires prayer and sacramental protection. And these two are not enemies, they work together. First thing you need to do is you acknowledge both realities. Mental illness and spiritual attacks can coexist, and I see it every day. And recognizing both prevents neglect of either. You got to affirm that mental illness is real and deserves compassionate professional care. You got to affirm that spiritual attack is real and can worsen emotional instability. And here's one thing you got to learn to do as well. You've got to hold both truths without fear or denial. And then you have to avoid assuming every symptom is demonic or every struggle is purely psychological. Now, the first thing that we need to do is stabilize the natural level. First, the church itself teaches that grace builds on nature. So stabilizing the mind helps spiritual clarity. Encourage people to stay connected to their licensed mental health professionals. Support healthy routines like sleep, nutrition, medication compliance, and structure. That helps to reduce chaos in the home, and that, because demons exploit disorder, we know that. They love chaos. And when you offer practical help without enabling destructive behavior, you create an atmosphere where they can feel safe, an atmosphere where they can heal. Another thing we got to do is guard the spiritual atmosphere. Parents can sanctify the home even when adult children resist explicit religious help. If they're staying at home still, bless their home with holy water, or bless the room with holy water. Pray the St. Michael prayer daily. Keep a blessed crucifix and sacramentals in the home. Play sacred music or scripture audio softly at common areas. Maintain peace. Demons thrive on conflict. And then another thing that you need to learn to do is intercede without controlling. Parents, you got to pray for your children without trying to force spiritual awakening. Tell them, say, I'm here for you. I'm praying for your peace and healing, and you're not alone. Always offer daily prayer, whether it be the rosary, divine mercy, or simple intercession. Fast once a week for their clarity and protection. Now, try to avoid arguments about faith. Spiritual blindness is not cured by debate. And you got to trust that God works in the will even when the mind is clouded. And sometimes we need to learn to step back. We need to set boundaries when behaviors become abusive or destabilizing. And remember that Christ himself at times stepped away to pray. And lastly, I want to just share this because I think this is the most important. I think it ties it all together. Adults have to choose their own path. Parents can only open doors, not push them through. Offer to pray with them, but accept a no. If they say no, accept it. Invite them to Mass or confession gently. Don't insist it, invite. Leave blessed items available, but do not impose them. And trust that God works way long before visible change appears. I think all these things working together and understanding the physical and the spiritual side of both is a great tool as a parent in being able to deal with our own anxiety, stress, depression about these issues that we see our adult children going through.
Very good. My gosh, that was just wonderful. Now we're going to slide over to the expert of behavior modifications and so on. Our Dr. Adrian, glad to see you, brother. What do you think about this subject matter? Give us your thoughts.
Well, I'm looking at a hand with different fingers as I make the comparison at top. But I have to repeat that we are all people, all beings in the world, one hand of God. And separating is a tendency of the human condition. And separating is because people want to see more clear what's the difference between one and the other. But here we have to look at the similarity. When I go to the mental hospital and I see my patients as a psychiatrist, I consider myself as one of the fingers and they the other fingers. And we are a hand. the hand of God. So there's no difference, and they feel that. I'm not the doctor, mean doctor, or anything. I am one of them, and it happens that I'm one of them to assist them as a messenger from the Almighty to straighten their ways, to protect their lives from in unnecessary portals for the Satan. I, um, this is my general attitude, and this is the most important. Then comes the second part, which is more detailed, like Dr. Joshua mentioned, and I certainly want to know specifically what's happening with the other, so that I specifically help. Like nowadays, I think the future of medicine would be uh, GNS. GNS is, uh, you know, the generations of sequences that will come in the DNA, and it's a test for that to know how to appeal to everyone medically, specifically, not through statistics. We're not statistics. So that's I would do to find specificity. Um, and then I will trust them, and they will be my friends, not my patients. So, and that by itself, being myself, helps them because they end up emulating certain parts of me. I don't know what I have there, but they are becoming stronger because I emulate the parts of God that are the strongest, and and then they know what to do. I let them find out more by themselves how to solve problems rather than feed them with the answers. So that's in a nutshell.
Very good. Thank you, gentlemen, for your excellent responses. That's just fantastic. You guys are fantastic.